talk with you.
Welcome back. I do love me some comics. I think especially because I get to do this. I don't know, it's not that hard. It's certainly not as hard standing in front of a room full of people going, make me laugh. If I'm not funny, I'm just not funny one night. But if you're a stand-up and you get up in front of those people, it's serious business, the funny. I'm excited to welcome to the program for the very first time, but I'm already hoping it certainly won't be the last because we've got a bunch of male comics to make fun of, so we better get to it. This is Natashia Mower.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, how are you?
It's great to be here finally.
I know. I was telling somebody earlier today that we're friends on Facebook, but we kind of palled up on Twitter.
Yeah, and I'd actually appreciate more than other friendships because most people don't understand the value of Twitter.
You know, I think I'm just kind of starting to get Twitter. I understood the importance of it, but I was like, I couldn't get in the pool.
My Twitter is like just 9 years worth of carving out my ego. It's like, because you can get a bunch of followers by like retweeting a lot or following a lot, and I was like, no, this is like my comedy resume, just
That's
my
right.
jokes.
Original content.
9 years, I've got like 800 and something. So it's like, no,
Not changing the strategy though.
No.
Staying with it. Original content.
No, I'm going to
Natashia
retweet
Mower.
everything. Like, no, yeah, I'm just going to stick that way. And even if I converse with someone, I've probably deleted tweets that you and I have corresponded. I'm like, that's not part of my joke, so that goes away.
I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. And of course, I'm sure that you follow a ton of comics on Twitter as well, and there are guys like Patton Oswalt and Sarah Silverman who's killing it so hard. But man, it's a great place for comedy.
There's too much actually. Like I've seen people who like you'll never know who they are, but I mean they have like 1 million Twitter followers because they're hilarious. And then I'll see like their tweets like cut up into memes and just stolen and put all over the internet and stuff. So it's like, yeah, it is great for comedy because you could go through all day and just read funny stuff. Like follow the writers of your favorite TV shows. Those are the people.
That's a great tip. That is a great
and a
tip.
lot of them are great stand-ups and. Yeah, so it's a really good medium for that, but you don't get too much attention unless like you have a tweet like go crazy or something.
Which is a hard thing to do, and I know that there are people out there furrowing their brow and trying to come up with the great tweet right now that's probably not going to happen. But then again, I think the other thing is, right, if you get a moment, if you get a great gig or something like that that raises your profile a little bit. And I've totally done this where after I find out about somebody, and I'm thinking of Kumail Nanjiani, who I loved in Silicon Valley.
His stand-up is so good.
He's so good, and his Twitter feed is so good. And the thing I think like how does he come up with it all day long? Of course, he's probably got 2 or 3 guys that just write tweets for him. But
you think so?
I don't know.
I'm like, Kumail? I don't know.
Well,
I think that's all him, judging by his stand-up that I've listened to and seen. How dare you, sir? Bring me on your show. No, but I did trust our friendship more because of Twitter.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, because you connect with people really easily on Facebook, and then you kind of forget who they are. Sometimes I feel bad. Or you're like, I have 12 friends named Rachel. Like, I don't know who this Rachel is, but like,
right.
Twitter, I very rarely interact with real people. So it feels more unique.
Yeah, well, it is. It's funny that in some ways, of course, it's an entire universe of its own, and I try to stay far away from the political stuff. I mean, there's so much awfulness there, but there's a huge world that is like, to what? I mean, they've heard of Twitter, but they don't really know what it is or how it works.
Oh yeah, or like, I don't know, if I, after 9 years, only had like 31 followers, I would have deleted my Twitter. Like,
right.
I'm like, this is
obviously something's not working.
Right,
here.
but there are people just like have thousands more tweets than I, and like 30 followers. I'm like, I don't get how you use this. But some people it's like a diary. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too, and I know what you mean because on some level, and I've probably been close to 5 years on Twitter, and it's only really been, I hate to say it, in the last 6 months to a year that I've really, I mean, I've always known that it was really important to be there and that you want followers, and there are people who create something out of nothing and get followers just because they're entertaining to listen to, but you still kind of have to figure it out for yourself, I think, in a way.
Oh yeah, like I for the longest time it was where I would post the darker jokes that I didn't want my family to see on Facebook before I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna put everything on there. But yeah, it used to be my diary in that sense. I was like, I don't think people would like this joke on Facebook, so we'll just leave it here.
It's true. Well, it's a broader crowd on Facebook. People aren't so, well, of course, the trolls and the politics people, but on Twitter, it's kind of like we come here to not be offended and to be able to say something that some people might be.
Yeah.
And yet it's like, well, actually, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just what I'm saying is don't judge my comedy just based on my Twitter, but also judge it only on my Twitter.
I see.
Yeah.
We'll do one and then we'll do the other and we'll go back.
Yeah.
So speaking of stand-up, how are things? How long have you been at it? We really don't know each other. We haven't hung out before, so.
Yeah, I recently just celebrated 6 years of doing stand-up. It's going well. I had like a brief like dip. You know, some people will do it and then leave and then come back. And I had a little dip of like before I got on medication with my depression, I was just in and out. And I wasn't doing that many open mics, but I kept getting on shows because I'd made a name for myself and it just felt wrong. Like to not really be putting in the work I should and still be doing shows. So yeah, there was a little while last year where I was out of it for a bit, but got on medication, I'm doing good, and it's so fun to be going back to open mics and like not just doing shows, but being part of your scene and your community is the part that really is the best.
And that is an essential ingredient in being a comic, because it is such a more, and I'm always kind of comparing all of my artist entertainer friends in terms of kind of what their lives are like, and in the case of comedy as opposed to music, and certainly an open mic where you just get one person after another who's playing an acoustic guitar, that's one thing, but like if you're in a band, you can't hang around the way that you do as a stand-up. And also, it's part of the culture that you kind of be in that community in order to get that support.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you say support, I mean, there was a time when, like, the first couple years I was in, you depended almost entirely on your fellow comedians for an audience, whether it was just them being in the audience or them bringing a couple friends. Like, so we really had to like hold each other up for a long time if it was something other than Wise Guys, but. Just like setting small goals. Like I was in a comedy festival with one of my heroes, and so I'm like, okay, Dana Gould, like that was really awesome. The 208 Fest in Boise, Idaho, and so then I just keep setting smaller goals. Like, oh, I want to be able to do a new 45 minutes within this amount of time, or there's a certain festival I want to get into next year, or something like that. You know, so just because the measure of success in stand-up is so, there's no way to measure it really. It's just your own personal measurement, so I'm like, okay, no more pressure, just maybe I can get to 900 followers.
Well, and it's interesting that we have people kind of across the spectrum in the comedy community here in Salt Lake, in Utah, and I'm thinking specifically of our pal Guy Seidel, who is a wildly funny dude.
So funny.
Really, really good at what he does. And Guy has made the choice to not try to be comedy industry person, but rather he's got his own business and has said, you know, this is what works for me. Is I have my job, I have my business, I like that. And then our pal Andy Gold seems, and Christian Piper, those guys doing
both
well.
Great, yeah.
Both wildly funny guys.
So funny.
And it seems like they're both doing pretty well out there in LA.
Yeah, and Andy's so generous. Like he'll reach out to me and just let me know, like, hey, there's this thing that, you know, a lot of LGBTQ comedy events you could get into and stuff like that. Like, have you thought about coming out to LA? It's like, yeah, I just have no money. But Guy and Marcus are really interesting to watch because they're also very generous and let me open for them quite a bit. And they're just doing their musical impression show, no stand-up, and they'll let me go up there. But, you know, who's to say, like, it's, even though they're not wanting to be represented strictly as stand-ups anymore, it's not like they can't write of a new joke or think of something new and then happen to throw it out on us, because they totally converse with the audience to make it a really fun, like, everyone's involved kind of thing. So I've seen them throw some stuff out there, and it's still really funny, but I get paying the bills also.
Sure.
Yeah.
does have to be done.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your writing process, because I know everybody's different, and this is something that I was thinking about and in anticipating you being here is, on one hand you say, well, writing, and a joke or a story for a stand-up comedian can be a very small thing. I think of Mitch Hedberg. I'm a wildly huge fan of Mike Kaplan. In fact, we've gotten kind of a really nice back and forth on Twitter of all things, and it's such a thrill.
That is really cool because he's good.
He really is. He's really great, but he tends to be kind of smaller and more compact with his jokes. And I'm just curious, like, what your process is as far as taking a germ of something that occurs to you and kind of how you develop that. Does it go, oh, well, this is a short joke, this is a long joke?
No, they definitely all start out kind of the same. It's just, and I can attest to the whole like Mitch Hedberg thing. Like, most of my jokes are less than a minute. I don't have too many long jokes. And I think it's just because I like to be concise, just get right to what's funny. If there's something in between that I'm not quite sure is funny or is funny enough, I'll just take it out. But it starts as, like you said, like a germ. Could even just be like an idea that starts the same as like a tweet. And usually I'll write it out how I think is funny, just my own very personal interpretation, and then maybe try it out at an open mic or two. But the main thing, most of the time before I even try it at an open mic, is going, okay, so this is funny to me, the way this is written out. But now pretend you're talking to someone who's from like a totally different planet, and you're trying to convey why this is humorous to them. And so you just like make sure that because it's, you know, telling a joke. How is it funny? How is it going to be received to other people? So that's the main thing. And sometimes you have to make like artistic compromises for that, but yeah, it took me like 3 or 4 open mics before I was like, oh, I'm not telling a joke. I need to figure out how to do that. So, but yeah, most of them are really short. Like in a 20-minute set, I could have like 25 jokes or something like that, you know. So it's also really hard to memorize the order of my jokes that way. I call myself a professional, but I have my list like every time.
That's interesting, because I think of a lot of comics that are quite popular now, and of course at the top of the heap, Louis C.K., who is very much a storyteller and makes sense as to why he has transitioned so successfully into making films and doing television shows, where it is the story and there are funny moments, but it's like the arc is the main thing, and that's long.
Yeah, and I found I've been able to, I guess there is kind of an arc. When I headlined Wise Guys last year, I did like 55 minutes, and I was like, I'm not sure how, you know, I can't have a segue for every single joke. And it still ended up being, there was like a theme or a thread throughout the whole thing, and it felt very organic. So it ends up all connecting in the end, which was really cool to see. But yeah, longer stories, I wish I could be more animated on stage. Like, I have jokes that I know would be better if I was just less inhibited, and it's really hard to push myself to like act things out on stage. And there's people like Barbara Gray, who's from Salt Lake, moved to LA, one of my heroes, so funny. She's so uninhibited on stage, like every time I see her, and it makes her jokes 100 times funnier. So like working on that is definitely a goal, and I'm 6 years in and it's still hard, you know.
Sure. Yeah. But there always is that growth, especially if we use 10,000 hours, you know, kind of tipping point stuff where, and I think about it here, of how much more comfortable I am than I was even for a couple of years, for a really long time.
Oh, and one tip while I'm thinking about it as far as writing goes is because my sets are so hard to memorize because I mix up the jokes a lot and they're really short. If I'm really being a professional, what I have to do to have it memorized is practice it probably like 4 or 5 times, just like over and over, and just repeat it. And actually, I should do that more, because that's when I come up with the best tags, the best changes to my jokes, the best evolution. It could be a joke I've been telling for like 4 years, and then I'm just like saying it out loud one day just to get it memorized, and then I'll think of something that adds to the joke tenfold. So yeah, definitely just practicing no matter how long you've been doing it. Even if it's just I used to be ashamed of doing old jokes at open mic, like, oh, these comics have heard this before.
Right.
And you're like,
because you always do have that built-in critic group at
yeah.
open mic, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. Well,
People, they saw you last time. So.
No, and I don't think anyone has ever been like, dude, you've told that joke like 5 mics in a row now, but you've still got like that, you're self-conscious about it, you know? Still getting over little things like that, you know?
Sure, but that's part of it for any performer, any musician that goes out, and of course, I've got tons of friends here in the Salt Lake market that I've seen lots of times, and that has occurred to me that at some point you're gonna have to fall in love with your song all over again, or fall in love with your joke all over again, and remember why it was funny in the first place, right?
Yeah, I remember my first closer. I found a notebook, and it was the first closer I ever told, and I was trying to remember how it went, and I couldn't really piece it together all the way, and what I did piece together, though, made me want to like vomit in embarrassment. 6 years later, it was so. I was like, people let me say this on stage, and they
I got
laughed
back on
at
stage
it.
after having told this
This was my closer. Like
Right.
people, I don't know. It was weird, but
Get off the stage!
Yeah.
Get off the stage! You were great.
but that is part of it. Is like your own mentality. It's like with sports or anything. It's really like your mental state that's gonna be the number one thing.
Absolutely.
That pulls you through and makes you better. And I guess at that time it was like, this is the best I have, so I'm proud of it. You know, I wasn't embarrassed by, oh man, I would never tell that on stage. No, but yeah, same thing as, like you said, being really like nervous the first couple of years or so, or just panic attacks and crippling anxiety as the guy who's supposed to introduce you goes up and just does 20 racist minutes, like, and you're like, please stop, just introduce me. Oh, this is the worst. Like, can't think of worse moments. Didn't know Xanax existed back then. And so what I had to do was just go, okay, this is terrifying. So what are you gonna do? The thing you're most terrified of is bombing. That's the worst thing that can happen.
Sure.
So you're either gonna go up there and kill it, or you're gonna bomb. So, and that's just really what I would tell myself. You have to just go do it, because otherwise what was the point of going up there? And so that helped me get over anxiety a lot, actually.
Isn't that interesting? Especially because from night to night, bomb, kill it, with the same routine. There's so many ingredients in what ends up happening. Talk a little bit about crowds and that sort of thing. I saw some Joe Rogan where he totally slayed some guy who was, you know, trying to heckle and.
I found out I'm really good most of the time at taking down hecklers. Because I know my own insecurities so well that I can look at people and maybe see or guess theirs, but I don't like it necessarily. Like, it's fun to get like a big like cheer or something response from the audience, but like, I worked really hard on these jokes. I want to tell these jokes. Why are you being an a-hole right now? Like, I don't want to have to tear you apart.
You don't go to the Utah Symphony and heckle.
Right. I had an experience once where I had no microphone.
So literally, as Andy Gold would say, shouting jokes.
Yeah, no microphone. Lights were like brighter than this stage. I'm talking to a room full of people, and this younger guy talking through everyone's set. And I'm wondering why these other comics aren't shutting him down. They're just kind of like sweating and getting nervous and stuff. And I'm like, well, I have to do this. And by the end of me talking to him, his date had moved to another table, and he was flipping me off, just sitting there like flipping me off. And I was like, all right, I earned that. That was good. But no, it's most crowds are pretty respectful. It just depends on where you're performing, who set it up, what's going. There's so many different factors. Like Wise Guys, I feel spoiled anytime I'm there, because those people know they're for comedy. Like, one time I was there on a weeknight. It was a last minute show, and one of the comics was like, oh, there's like only 40 people here. And I was like, I know, it's dope, right? But yeah, so it's just always a treat anytime Keith Stubbs give you stage time. But other things you have to push a lot harder for.
Sure.
I'm really excited though, because Christopher Stevenson and I are planning on starting a brunch show at Squatters. Pretty soon. Yeah, we did that once for a festival. Oh, it was so fun. It worked out really well. And what's great at Squatters is like, we'll do all the promoting. And as a comic, that just, I'm like, yes, that's the best thing I could hear.
You've arrived.
Yeah, well, just because, you know, other shows like Nicholas Smith is putting on an amazing show in like an hour in Salt Lake called Dungeons and Comedy at the Beehive Stateroom. He and Aaron Orlovitz run that show. So if you're not doing anything, 8 o'clock, go to
Aaron Orlovitz, another very funny guy. I love that dude.
Only $5. It's one of the best shows in Salt Lake, but you really have to push and push. And so weird in this digital age, when I'm trying to promote my own shows, I get more people to go by just talking to them in person than I do by, I mean, I still post stuff on Facebook and whatnot, but I've gotten more people to go by just being like, hey, I have a show in person. And then they actually go.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, when they hear it's Wise Guys, they're like, "Oh, I'll go get tickets." So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's got a great reputation.
It's a treat.
As does Keith Stubbs, for sure.
Oh yeah, and it should.
Yeah. So we should talk about upcoming shows, and since we've been blathering on about social media,
Yes,
get all of your contact information for the world of chatting.
Well, so my my Twitter is at Tasha Mo, TASHIAMO, or you can find me Natashia Mower on Facebook. I've got a few things I'm really excited about. Tomorrow and Saturday, I'll be opening for Ron Funches. I'll be hosting for Ron Funches at Wise Guys, 7
That's
and
huge.
9:30. Oh yeah.
Let's pause right there for just a second. Ron Funches he's killing these days.
Yes. Oh, he's amazing. He's only
Congratulations on that. That's
Thank
really
you.
cool.
Yeah. Oh no, I admire him so much. And then Tanner Nicholson, also a very funny local comic, will be on the show. So tickets for that on wiseguyscomedy.com. I'm doing another show at Wise Guys. Let's see here. Atheists of Utah Comedy Night, November 5th or 6th. Jay Whitaker will be on that. A couple of touring comics.
Fantastic. Very funny guy.
Yeah, and then one of my favorite shows, Free Kittens, that my good friend Jason Harvey runs with a comic named Greg Orm. It's at Urban Lounge once a month. Free show, really, really solid. And December 1st at the Beehive Social Club, where Dungeons and Comedy is happening now, I'll be headlining. So if you want to see me do 45 minutes, I've got the very, very funny Michelle Larney and Lamar Kellywood on the show. So trying to get some new names out there.
Yeah, that's cool. I love hearing the names that I don't know. That means there's new people coming in.
Oh yeah, I see someone do open mic once that I see like a spark of anything, and I try not to overwhelm them and be like, oh my God, I need to nurture you. Like, but no, there's some really good people that deserve some. Salt Lake has a ton of good comics.
Really does.
Yeah.
Really does. It's a great community, and I've had so much fun just seeing it and going to Wise Guys.
Yeah, and thank you for promoting us. Like,
absolutely. Well, everybody's been so nice to me, and it's great to have you here for the first time, and I hope that everything continues to go great, and come back and visit again soon.
Oh yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you, Natashia. Natashia Mower, TASHIAMO is the handle for social media. Hey, Katrina, what are we doing now? Oh, they're looking for music. Hey, you guys, we're going to go to a quick commercial. We'll come back. We'll have one more tune for you. Before we get out of here, please stay tuned, because I think I love you.